Hello, everyone. Welcome to class. Thank you for your patience. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties. And we have Jess here to do Makeup 101 today.
Hi guys. I don't know if I should wait for more people to join or if I should just start. So
I think just
start?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Jess. I am a worker bee over at Southwest. I dabble a lot in makeup. I've actually been doing makeup for about 10, 11 years now. Um, Pardon the under eye bags. That's just life. But anyway, so we'll just kind of jump in and get started. So today's class, we're going to focus more on base, which is foundation, concealer, contour, bronzer, blush, and then a little bit of highlight. So we're not going to touch on like brows or like eyeshadow blending or anything like that, or color correcting. We might do that at a different class. So for now, if you guys wanted to kind of join along, you can. If not, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So I've already moisturized my face. I've done my skincare. That's kind of an important part of your base is making sure that your skincare is prepped. So, moisturizer and things like that. But again, we can go over that at a different class. So today I'll be using two different primers. So I have combination oily skin. So I get really oily on my T-zone. So that's like this whole area right here, sometimes right here as well. So I'll use my mattifying primer. And then what I like to do is I'll grab just a little bit of it and then just kind of like, I don't know, like do this with it. And then what I'll do from there is I'll just kind of like apply it like this to my T-zone, apply it on my chin area, and then apply a little bit right here on the sides. And then right after that, I'll go on with a different moisturizer or a different primer. So I'll use my hydrating primer. And you can use any primer that you have if, especially that kind of matches to your skin tone. Or I'm sorry, not your skin tone, your skin. So I'll use my hydrating primer on the rest of my face. Um, and I'll do the same thing. And then I'll just kind of go in on the tops of my forehead, on the sides of my cheek, and then I'll just blend it all in together like this. And I'll focus the mattifying one more on my T-zone, and then the hydrating one, that one can kind of go anywhere, but I tend to just like focus it on the areas where I don't have my mattifying one. So I'll just kind of go in, make sure it's all settled in, and focus it more on like the areas where I know I get oily, which is right here, especially my nose and my chin area. I make sure to focus most of it there. So I'll just kind of go in a little bit. Perfect. And then we're not going to do any color correcting today. I don't really want to focus on the color correcting aspect of it just because that entails a whole different class and there's a lot more that ties into it. So what I like to do is I'll grab my concealer right after. And if I remember correctly, like a long time ago, people used to do like the full face glam where they would do like foundation everywhere and then they would apply like the concealer on top and like just overdo it on products. You don't want to do that because that causes a lot of cakiness. So what I'll do is I'll take a concealer. I have here the Kosas concealer. This one's really good for like dry under eyes specifically. So if you struggle a lot with that, this one's a really good option. And then what I'll do is it'll be on the back of my hand, and I just like to kind of warm it up on the back of my hand. So I'll warm it up a little bit, and then what I like to do is I'll go in with my finger and I'll just apply it, kind of like press it into my under eye. So I'll go in and I'll press it in to my under eye, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So grab whatever else you have on the back of your hand, and I'll just go in on the other side, do the same thing. And then as you go in, feel free to just like dabble it in as much as you can because you want to get it as warm as possible. The more warm the warmer you get it, the more the product disperses, and then the more the less product you have to use from your concealer and anything like that. So you want to just kind of dabble it in to your under eye and just keep doing that. And then what I like to do after is I'll just leave it. So I won't touch it. I'll just leave it. I don't like to kind of mess with it too much. So what I'll do right after that is I'll grab my foundation. I have the Haus Labs, the Lady Gaga foundation. This one is excellent because it has arnica in it. As we know, arnica helps with healing and things like that. It's also non-comedogenic. So if you tend to break out from foundations. I've tried this one like 5 times and I never break out. And then I've done the mistake of leaving it on overnight. Don't do what I do. But I've left it on overnight. So I grab it, I put a little bit on the back of my hand. Then right after, what I'll do is I'll do the same thing. So I'll just warm it up and I'll just keep doing that until I feel like, okay, like that's enough. And then I'll just apply it on my cheeks. So the areas where I know that I'll need it the most, which is everywhere that my concealer didn't touch. So on my chin area, forehead, a little more on my cheek. So if you have any leftover, just keep dispersing it all over your face. So the only place where I don't apply any foundation or any product is my nose. My nose tends to be the one area where it breaks apart for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if anyone else struggles with that, but I do a lot. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of leave it there and then get more product, just kind of disperse a little more. Then what I like to do is I'll go in with a brush. You can get any brush, but I like to use more brushes that are like a little more circular like this. I feel like a YouTuber doing this. but so products or brushes like this, or even like dense brushes like this one, where they're a little more flat and dense. So what I like to do is I'll go in with a brush first, and then I'll just kind of pat the product in and just do that all over my face. Some people like to also apply this foundation with their hands, so you can blend it in with your hands if that works for you. I always say to right after I would go in with like a beauty blender. That usually helps a lot. So what I do is I'll just kind of do this all over my face. I tend to bring it down to my neck a little just to blend it in with the rest of my body, just because sometimes you'll get a harsh line because we all have different undertones. Sometimes foundations, like, they nail it and we have like the perfect undertone to go with our skin. Sometimes we don't, and sometimes it can look too pinky, too yellow, too neutral if you're not even neutral. So I always just blend it into my neck. And then what I like to do is I'll just keep doing this around, and I'll avoid the concealer. So I'm not going to touch the concealer part just yet. So as soon as I'm done with this portion, I just keep doing this, keep blending it in. I'll go in with my beauty blender. You can go in with the damp beauty blender if you'd like. That's entirely up to you. You can go in with the dry beauty blender. I like to wet mine before I start doing my makeup to kind of just let it settle in a little bit so that it's not too wet and it's not too dry. So what I'll do after is I'll just kind of bounce it on my skin like this. And I'll just keep bouncing it on just to make sure to get like a seamless application, because with the brushes sometimes it can leave streaks, and you don't want to like walk out in public with a bunch of streaks all over your face. That doesn't look nice. So you'll just keep doing that until you feel like you've achieved kind of like what you're looking for with your look. So just keep going, keep going, keep going. And then right after I get done with this portion, so right after I'm done blending it out and I feel like, okay, that looks pretty good. If you want to go in with more product, you can. That's entirely up to you. I like to sometimes go in with a little more. So what I'll do is the damp beauty blender, I'll take whatever excess product that I have like on the back of my hand, and I'll just use it on the areas where I feel like I could use just a little more coverage. So this way you're not overusing any product. You don't want to overdo it because you don't want it to, you kind of want your base to look like skin. You don't want it to look like, oh, you have like a bunch of products on. So right after that's done, what I'll do is I'll go in with a dry beauty blender, and then I will blend out the concealer under my eye, and I'll just dab it in little by little. So I'll just go in right here. I'll start off in a corner, and just kind of blend that product out. And then I'll slowly use that, whatever product that the beauty blender kind of absorbs. What I like to do is I'll use that product and I'll apply it on my nose. So at that point, I'll just go in and use the whatever's left over on my nose. And I've found that it actually works a lot better for me, where it doesn't look like I have a bunch, I've used a lot. Just because, like I said, for me, it tends to cake up all over my nose, and that's what I want to avoid. Another thing that I know a lot of people want to achieve is like a creaseless under eye. I'm going to be realistic. That's not realistic. Creaseless under eyes are not a thing. I mean, they can be for a little bit, you know, when you first apply the makeup, and that's fine. Like there's some girls who don't have any lines like on the under eye and it just looks flawless. There are some girls who do have lines. Like I myself have lines. I can never like get that like perfect, flawless, seamless under eye, but we can get as close to it as possible. So what I like to do is I'll just kind of focus it on here. And that's why I kind of leave my concealer on my under eye a little longer, because it'll settle in. And that's kind of what you want. You want it to settle in. So that way when you're blending it in, it's not using too much product. So I'll leave my under eye alone. For now, I'm not going to touch it. And then I'll go in with my contour. So contour and bronzer are two different things. Contouring is more of a cool toned color, and that's what gives you the shadow effect, where it looks like, oh, you have, like, if you have a rounder face, it can carve out like cheekbones. Like you'll be like, oh, she has cheekbones. Bronzer is more just to warm up the face. So with contouring, what I like to do is, depending on your face shape, and that again is a totally other video we'll get into, but depending on your face shape, you want to kind of determine what spots best work for your face shape. So like myself, I have an oval face. So what I'll do is I'll go in with my contour stick, and I have the Nude Sticks Tinted Blur Sculpt Stick. Other favorites of mine are, I kind of like the Fenty one. Don't get me wrong, Rihanna can do no wrong in my eyes, but that Fenty stick, like it's not that blendable, and I don't know why. I struggle with it a lot. But the Makeup by Mario sculpting stick is amazing. The Anastasia one is really good too. I think it's like $25 and you can get it at Sephora. So what I like to do is I'll grab this color and I'll apply it where I know I can, like on myself, I can see where I have like a little bit of hollow. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of go in with the line, and I'll just apply a line just like that. And then I'll do it on this side too. And I don't use a lot just because I don't want to overdo it on the contour. And then I'll apply a little bit under my chin. So I'll just go in a little here, and then I'll go in a little right here on the other side as well. And then I like to go in on the top right here just because I have a big forehead. So I want to bring that down a little bit. So I'll go in right there, and then just a little bit in the center. And then I'll just use a little bit kind of on the sides of my nose. I won't use a lot. I'm still kind of learning how to contour my nose, just because that's the one thing where I feel like I've followed so many trends, because so many people love to do nose contouring and I cannot master it. I don't know why. I think it's my nose shape. I wish I knew. But what I'll do after is, as you can see, so I did a line here, 3 lines up here, I did 2 on the bottom of my chin and then on the sides just to kind of give my face a little more shape where you can kind of see the jawline. I did a little bit under my lip just to kind of give it a little bit, like to make my lip look a little fuller. And then I did a little on the sides of my nose. So what I do with that is I will go in with a dense brush, kind of like the foundation brush I used, but it's a little more dense, so it looks like this. And when you apply it, you just want to be doing like stippling motions like this. So what I'll do is you want to push it up. You don't want to push it down, you want to push it up. So I will go in and I'll just kind of push the product up, and you want to blend it out to where it kind of just like fades into your skin, but you can still see the hollow a little bit. And indoors, it may look a little more harsh than it will when you go outside. So I'll just keep blending kind of until I'm happy with how it looks. And then I don't know if you can see like the difference. Like you can kind of see that there's a little bit of a hollow right here where it looks like it. So I'll do the same thing on this side. And I'll just keep pushing it upwards. And then what I like to do after is I'll go in with the bronzer, but we'll get to that in a second. If you feel like your product is drying up while you're applying it, you can go in and spray a setting spray or like a mist of some sort, just to kind of like dampen the product a little bit so that it's blendable, because sometimes some products dry up really easily and I don't know why, but they do. So if you have any residue, you can apply to the other side to kind of match them. But I don't know if you can see, like now you can kind of see a little bit of a hollow on both sides. So then I'll do my chin. So I'll go under my chin and just kind of blend it in. And the chin part and the bottom of your jawline is probably the one part that's like that you want to focus on, like blending the most, just because you don't want to leave a harsh line. Like that does not look good. I've done it many times where I thought I did a really good job and it no. I saw a picture and then I just see a line like right across my jawline. It looks horrible. So you want to make sure that you blend it out as much so where you can see like there's that hollow. So you'll do the other side as well and you'll just kind of blend it out. And then I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning, but I don't usually tend to go in with a primer. Personally, I feel like I've tried every single primer on hand, and primers just never really work for me or my skin. It always ends up breaking my skin, like my foundation, concealer, whatever, always ends up kind of breaking apart for some reason. I don't know why. So I just have started using a method where I'll go in just with my skincare. So I'll just, right after I do my skincare, I let it kind of settle in and then I'll apply product. Because if you apply your makeup products too soon after applying uh, your foundation, your concealer, anything like that, it'll end up like kind of when you're peeling skin and you get that little residue. That's kind of what happens if you're applying your makeup too close to when you apply like sunscreen or moisturizer or anything like that. So you kind of want to avoid that. So as you can see, I'm still dabbing here, but you want to make sure you just dab, 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 blend it all in, and then I'll do my nose. With my nose, I actually use a smaller brush, so I tend to go in with a more fluffy brush, kind of like this one. Just because it's a smaller area, you don't want to use a brush like this one because you can get it all over your nose. So I'll go in with this side and I'll just kind of blend it upwards. And then if I feel like, oh, I need to apply a little more to make it look, to give it more of a slim look to your nose, you can go in with concealer right after and just kind of get the section in the center so that it doesn't look too harsh. So you'll go in and you'll just blend it out kind of like I'm doing right now. And you can keep going. And some people like to go all the way up like till right here on both sides. Some people will do like the little crosses, a little line to kind of like mimic a really, really small nose. So what I'll do right after is to give it a little more of a highlight, I'll apply a little bit down the bridge of my nose, a little concealer. Just like that, I'll draw a little line. And then I'll go in with a smaller beauty blender and just kind of dab the sides a little and work my way up. And then if I need to apply more bronzer to kind of like bring the nose in a little, I can do that. That's entirely up to you, whatever you choose to do. And I don't know if I also mentioned, but I'm using a lot of cream products. I like to use cream products first, and then I will use powdered products right after to kind of set them in. Sometimes cream products just work best on their own, total preference, but I like to use cream products. And then if I feel like I need to add a little more, I'll go in with a powder product just to either set it in or make it, pop a little more so that you can see it more. So I like to go in. This is the Soul Medium Face and Body Bronzing Balm. I believe ColourPop sells this, and it's just like a cream one. Chanel has one as well. There's a couple other brands that sell products like this. This one's the most affordable one, and it smells really good. So I'll go in with like the same brush that I used earlier, or that I was going to use earlier, and I'll just kind of like pat the product on so that you can see it on here. And I like to go in right here and just dab it in. So this will be my bronzer. So the contour was to create the hollows, to create the shape a little. The bronzer's to give the face warmth. So I'll go in and I'll just dab it until I feel like, okay, that's good enough for me. Some people use bronzer as well, just as a contour, and that's totally fine. It's a personal preference. So if you prefer that, you can do that. There are no rules to makeup. I've learned from so many years of like just dabbling in different YouTubers and watching everyone just kind of do their own thing. What works for them just sometimes doesn't work for me. I'll test it out just because it's a trend, but I find that it just doesn't always work. So do what works for you, for your eye shape, for your skin type, for your face shape. Just do that. Stick to that. Don't always like follow, like definitely try stuff because makeup's fun. So try different things, but definitely stick with what you know works best for you. So I'm going in at the top, just kind of bronzing my forehead a little. And you can't see it that well because the lighting, but it does look bronze, I promise. And I'll just go in and dab, dab, dab. And then I'll sometimes go in with whatever's left for the bottom and just kind of bring it down a little bit. And then any excess I may have. So this part is optional. Blush is an optional thing. I tell people like that's entirely up to you. I used to hate blush just because I'm more on the pale side. I used to think that blush would make me look, like those little girls, or when you're a little girl and they like do your makeup, like 90s girls that they do your makeup for like pageants, and you're like, you have like the rosiest like red cheeks, like, and I hate, oh my gosh, I would try to avoid that at all costs. I was like, please don't, like, I don't want to do that. So what I recommend is this is the Rare Beauty blush. I love it. You don't need a lot. You only need a little bit, I promise. So I use just one. Sometimes I'll go in with like a second one, just a smaller one though. And I like to apply the blush on the high points of my cheeks because I feel like what that does is it brings like the face in. And some people like to apply it at the top right here. So I'll just do that just for today. So as you can see, I have a little spot right there. And then also some people like to apply it on their nose just to give like that little flushed look. You can do that as well. Again, there are no rules. So what I'll do after is I'll go in with kind of the brush is a little angled, as you can see. So I'll go in with this brush, and what I will do after is I'll just dab it. So you can see like when I'm blending it, it just looks like ridiculous. So you want to just dab and then bring it up. So I like to bring the blush up. And if you ever like apply too much of a product, you can always go in with your damp beauty blender. And if you have any leftover concealer, you can always go in and just kind of apply it over to bring it down a little bit, just so it doesn't look so harsh. So I'll just bring it up to my temple to give my face more warmth. I'll do the same thing on this side, and I'll just keep pushing it in. You don't want to sweep it, because if you sweep it, that kind of causes streaks. So I just push the product in, and I do it like in a repeated motion, just like this. So I'll just keep going, and you can bring the product in as far as you want. You can just leave it up here. It's totally up to you. Like I said, this is all dependent on your face shape, because you want to focus, you want to do what works for your face shape and not what works for the next person. So like I said, I have an oval face. I wouldn't do what works for a square face, because that's not going to benefit me, and it's not going to look right on my skin or on my face. So I'll keep going in and just blending it out. So I may have overdone it a little bit on the blush. So what I'll do is I'll go in with my damp beauty blender, and then take whatever excess product I have on the back of my hand, and then I'll just kind of go in a little bit to lighten it up a little so that it doesn't look so harsh. And I'll do that on both sides. And you can even use it too if you want to blend it in a little more, so that it kind of like all seamlessly blends in together, because you are doing the contour, the bronzer, and the blush. So you want to like kind of tie it all in together. You don't want it to look separate where you're like, oh, I can see where the blush ends, or I can see where the bronzer ends, or where it starts. So you just want to blend it all in so that it all just looks like one. So you just keep going, and the best advice I can give is blend. Just, you can't, like, I don't believe in over blending. I think that the more you blend, the better it looks. And if you don't blend as much, then that's probably why you may have streaks or things like that. I've learned this over time. So yeah, I'm sorry I'm talking so much. But I'm like over here just blabbering. Like, I'm so nervous, I just keep talking. So what I'll do after is I'll go in with my tiny beauty blender, and then I will go in and I will push in the concealer one more time. So I'll push in the concealer right before I'm going to apply my powder. The reason you want to do this is because if you leave the concealer just as is, it'll settle into the fine line. So you'll kind of see the lines on your under eye. And then if you put the powder over it, it's going to settle that way. So if you push the product into your under eye, then you kind of are left with like more of a smooth canvas, and then you'll go in with the powder puff and the powder, and you'll just push the powder in so that it just looks a little bit more flawless. I guess I don't really believe that anything ultimately looks super flawless, but we get as close as we can. So I'll go in and I'll just push it in as much as I can, and then just do that. And I like to look up, because when I look up, at least I can see like the lines and everything. And then what I'll do is I have the Fit Me powder right here. This is like $6 or $7 at like Target. And then I also have the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish powder. So I like to go in with two powders. So I'll go in with the Fit Me powder first, and I'll put in like my powder puff. The powder puff looks like this, and you can get these at on Amazon. You can get a whole package of them. I think I got like a package of 12 for like $7, and then you'll see that there's like the powder on top. Don't apply this powder directly to your face just yet. So what I do is I'll apply to the back of my hand, and I'll kind of swirl it in so that it settles in, so that it looks more smooth. What I'll do with this then is I'll go in and I'll start in my inner corner, and I'll push the product in like this, and then I'll slowly dab it going down and to the sides. And then what this does is it creates more of a smooth finish, whereas before I used to go in with like a dense brush, and I thought that I was getting the smoothest finish, and I wasn't. So I'll go in just like this, and I'll apply it on my under eye, and I'll go down to where I can see that it ended, and do that, and then repeat that on the other side. So I'll go in again to get my powder, the excess, and I'll just swirl it on the back of my hand. And then this product, I will go in and I'm going to push it in again on this side. And then I'll just slowly start dabbing the product in, and I'll go down on the sides right here. So I'll just do that all over where the concealer is. And I'll just keep dabbing. And then I'll take the excess product that's on the back of my hand, and I'll put that on the center of my nose. So I'll just go in and I'll dab at the center of my nose on the top right here, just to kind of settle that in a little bit. Grab a little more, and I'll apply it on my chin area, just because I know that's where I get really oily. So I'll apply it on my chin area. And you can even apply it on your smile lines. If you know you're a smiler and you probably have smile lines, do the same thing. So go in with the powder, just kind of dabble it in here, and then just apply it on your smile lines. And that usually helps to avoid like it creasing too bad. So I'll just apply it on the smile lines like that, and then apply it here. And then you can apply the powder elsewhere too. Another thing I like to do with the powder is I'll go in and I'll kind of like carve out the sides right here, not too harshly, just lightly, so that it doesn't look like it's just a line, but just enough that I still have the hollow right there. And it kind of makes a difference. I don't know if you can see, like on this side, it looks a little more carved in than this side does. But I'll do the same thing on this side, and I just use very little. I don't use a lot, just because if you use a lot, it can look really harsh. So I'll go in and I'll apply it here, kind of bring it down a little bit. And if you use an excess amount, you can go in with a brush. Any brush is fine, but you can go in with any brush and just kind of brush it down a little to get rid of the excess powder. So I'll go in, just kind of get rid of, if I have any excess powder, I'll just kind of brush it off. And then the reason I brought up the Flawless Finish powder is because I like to apply a little more powder to my under eye, just because mine creases a little more than I want it to. So I'll do the same thing. So this powder is a pressed powder. So what I do with this is I swirl it in there a little bit, and then I'll do the same thing that I did with the other powder. I'll get rid of the excess on the back of my hand, and then I'll go in again and I'll just apply it to my under eye. And that kind of gives me like the finish that I'm looking for, to where it looks, and it brightens up your inner eye, your under eyes a lot more. Especially when you go in with a lighter powder than you would normally go in with. Some people also, when it comes to concealer, they like to go in with like their skin tone concealer, and then they'll go in on the inner corner with a lighter concealer just to brighten it up a lot more. That's totally optional. So what I'll do is I have the contour palette that I brought here. It's a powder, so to settle it in, just because, like I said, some people prefer to use powder products right after. Some people, like myself, I sometimes just like to leave cream products. But for today's class, I'll just do the powder as well. So I'll get a little bit of bronzer, and I'll just apply it just to kind of like give it that finish. And sometimes if you apply a powder product, it helps the product last longer on your face. So I'll go in, and it's kind of just setting it in. So you know how you would apply a setting powder on your concealer to kind of settle that in? Powder bronzers do the same thing for cream bronzers. Powder blush does the same thing for liquid blush. So I'll do that, and I'll go in with a little bit of blush as well. And then if you have any excess, just do this, just tap it. And then you can apply a little bit, not too much, because sometimes the Rare Beauty blush is really pigmented. It really shows up on your skin. So I like to just kind of go in and I'll like apply a little bit on my nose just to give myself that little rosy look. And then right after, you can do highlighter if you choose. I have the Master Crystal Reflector by Mario. This is kind of a universal product. So it looks, I don't know if you can really see it, but it's really shimmery. You can apply it like over your eye look. You can apply it as like an eyeshadow. You can apply it as a highlighter. You can apply it like on your lips if you wanted to just give a little bit of like glittery lip type look. You can do that. So I'll just go in and I'll like apply a little bit on up here on the cheekbones, just to give it a little bit of a glitter look, and then I'll apply a little bit on the center of my nose and then on the tops of my lips. So I'll just go in a little bit, and I use my hands a lot when it comes to my makeup, just because I feel like once I learned that warming up the products really does help the longevity of your product. And it honestly, like I said earlier, if you use less product when you warm it up on your skin, the warmer the product is, the more product you'll get and the less you'll have to use. So like my foundation, I'll go in with one pump and then I'll just blend it on the back of my hand, and then I'll apply it on my skin. Sometimes I even go in with my hands and I just apply the foundation on my skin with my hands, and then I'll go in with the beauty blender and just kind of smooth it out a little bit if I want to. The concealer, I always warm it up on the back of my hand, and then I'll apply it on my under eye. For me, that's helped a lot with the creasing on my under eye. I used to have that problem a lot because sometimes we're in the mornings, like we're just like brushing, and we'll just grab the concealer immediately and just kind of like, throw it under, blend it out, and then like we run out the door, and that's it. So I've trained myself to wake up a little earlier, to dedicate a little more time. I tend to use a mask when I'm in the studio a lot, so I really only apply makeup to my under eyes. So that's the area where I'm like, okay, they're gonna be looking at like my eyes, so I need to make sure that that kind of looks as flawless as possible. And then by the end of the day, I'm creasing, so it's normal. So if you take anything away from today, creasing is normal. I, I promise it's normal. Okay, it's not. We sometimes it's genetics. I have that issue. I wish that I just had like just smooth, flawless skin. As you guys saw, like right before I started, I have breakouts. Like I know a lot of people say estheticians like, oh, I wouldn't go to her. Not saying anyone here says that, but I've heard it where people will say like, I wouldn't go to that person because if that's their specialty, why don't they look a certain way? Like esthetician. As an esthetician myself, I've had a battle with my skin my whole life. So people sometimes expect me, like I've heard it, people sometimes expect me to have like the most flawless skin, where they'll say like, oh, well, you work in skincare, like why do you have acne? And it's like, well, I have hormones. I can't help that. But honestly, like I said, if you take anything away from today, it's makeup is fun. There's no rules to it. This is what works for me. So if any of these steps work for you, like I'm so happy. I'm so glad that it did. It took me years to get to a point where like I finally felt comfortable enough to get to this point. So yeah.
Do you want to ask if anybody has any questions?
Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Before we log off, and then what they would want to see next time. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we're done? Or some suggestions for what you'd want to see next time?
Lashes, Ardell. It depends also kind of what look you're going for. So if you're going for a more dramatic look, Ardell has some really good ones that you can even double on. It's the Ardell Wispies. I can't remember the number. I'll send you a picture of it though when I get to my phone. But I'll send you a picture because I have a bunch of them saved. Sometimes I even like to go into Amazon and I'll just buy like a pack of like very like a variety of lashes, and I like to cut mine up. Just because sometimes like obviously your eyes are different, so like my eyes are smaller. I always have to cut up my lashes. But I'll send you a bunch of options because I have actually quite a few that I like to use myself. Oh, the second finishing powder was the Charlotte Tilbury. It looks like this. It's the flawless finish powder. They have a small version of this at Sephora. I think this one is 40 something, don't quote me, but I know it's around $40. The smaller one is like 20 something. If you wanted to try it, I would start with the small one first, and then I would invest in this one. If not, just go into this one, because honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. I love this product so much. I do like the blush on the nose trend. I feel like it varies from person to person. Like on myself, I don't like it just because the way my nose is shaped, I don't feel like it does much for me. But I feel like it looks so cute on so many other women, and how they apply it and how it just looks rosy on them. On me, it doesn't, unfortunately, sadly. What's next week? Oh, next week's class. Okay, so that's what I wanted to ask. So next week's class, I have a couple options that I was thinking, because I know sometimes we tend to, how to explain, there's so many different things when it comes to makeup. So one option I was thinking was like color correcting, and kind of working with like the areas and the colors and the color wheel. Another option was using same ingredient products. So like you'll have a silicone foundation and a silicone primer, and those mix well together, but sometimes you'll use like a water-based primer and a silicone foundation, and you'll find that it breaks. So it's either option really that I was thinking of doing next week. Those are the two contenders though. That's what I was thinking.
Stay tuned to find out which one.
Right. Oh, okay, color correcting. Who looks at color correcting?
Yeah.
What's the color correcting?
Right.
Yeah, no, I learned this actually like 2 years ago, because I always found that like sometimes I'll go in. So like prime example, this foundation, the Lady Gaga foundation, and this concealer are different. This is water based and this is silicone based. So these two, to get these two to kind of work together, it takes a little bit more. Whereas if I just had a silicone based foundation, it just seamlessly blends in. These two, like I had to like blend in a lot and kind of like do a little extra work so that it doesn't separate, because I've found that sometimes using two different ingredient based products, it breaks on my skin. And once I learned like, oh yeah, duh, if you use this, but that's not something that like any of us would really know unless we're actively looking for this information. And that just was me kind of like Googling like, why does my foundation separate from my concealer, or why does my bronzer not blend in with my foundation, like what's going on? And that's kind of how I got to that point. Do you have any other questions? I try sometimes, Leah, just sometimes.
I guess we can wrap it up.
No other questions? Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for joining me today, guys. This was fun. I was really nervous, but this was fun.
Thank you, everyone. Jess will be doing her next class, which it sounds like it'll be color correcting, next week on the 26th at 6 p.m.
Yes.
And if you want to sign up, let us know if you need the link. And that's all.
Bye, guys.
Have a great night, everyone.